Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're diving into one of the most profound and practical truths ever shared by the legendary Dale Carnegie. Happiness doesn't depend on outward conditions. It depends on inner conditions. Let that sink in. This quote flips the script on everything we've been taught about what it means to live a happy life. Society often tells us that happiness is a reward we earn, that it comes after success, after financial security, after recognition, or after we've made it. We chase milestones, material wealth, approval from others, all in the hopes that eventually happiness will catch up with us. But Carnegie is saying something very different. He's saying no amount of success, comfort, or external validation will make you happy if your inner world is unsettled. Happiness isn't found in circumstances, it's created in consciousness. This isn't just philosophy, it's psychology, it's neuroscience, it's deeply personal. And in this video, we're going to unpack it all. Over the next hour, we'll explore the science behind why external conditions only bring fleeting joy, the role of our mindset in shaping long-term fulfillment, and the practical tools you can use starting today to cultivate happiness from within. You'll hear stories from real people, you'll learn from Carnegie's timeless wisdom, and most importantly, you'll walk away with a clearer understanding of how to take back control of your emotional state, no matter what life throws at you. So whether you're watching this during a tough season of life, or you're simply curious about living more joyfully and intentionally, you're in the right place. Let's begin this journey inward, where real happiness lives. Let's start with the chase. From the moment we're young, the world teaches us a script. Do well in school, get a good job, earn more money, buy the house, drive the car, find the relationship, post the photos, impress the crowd, then you'll be happy. And so, we run. We chase promotions, bigger paychecks, more followers, nicer clothes, more recognition. We attach our worth and our happiness to what we can prove to others. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Outward success doesn't guarantee inner peace. In fact, some of the most visibly successful people in the world, celebrities, CEOs, athletes, influencers, have publicly admitted to feeling lost, depressed, anxious, or even hollow inside. The conditioning to chase. It's not your fault. We've been conditioned this way. Marketing tells us we're one purchase away from happiness. Social media makes us believe other people are already living the dream, and we're falling behind. The education system rewards achievement, not well-being. Even friends and family with good intentions may ask, when are you getting a better job? When are you buying a house? When are you settling down? We hear it enough times and start to believe, if I don't have these things, I'm failing. If I do get them, I'll finally feel good about myself. Real stories, having it all, but feeling empty. Let's look at a few stories that illustrate this illusion. Jim Carrey, one of the most successful comedians of our time, once said, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer." Anthony Bourdain, the world-traveling chef with millions of fans and a dream job, tragically ended his life despite having what many would envy. Princess Diana, adored by millions, once described feeling deeply lonely and misunderstood inside the royal palace. These are just a few among thousands. People who climbed the highest mountains, only to find the view didn't fill the void inside. It's not that success is bad. It's that we've mistaken it as the source of happiness. So in the next section, we'll explore what those inner conditions really are and how to build them. But before we move on, ask yourself, have you ever chased something thinking it would make you happy, and it didn't? Are you currently on that treadmill, running harder, but feeling emptier? What if happiness isn't out there at all, but already inside you, waiting to be uncovered? Let's go deep. What are inner conditions? So now that we've uncovered the illusion of outward success, let's ask the next question. If happiness doesn't depend on what we have, then what does it depend on? Dale Carnegie gives us the answer with startling clarity. Happiness doesn't depend on outward conditions. It depends on inner conditions. But what does that really mean? What are these inner conditions that shape how we feel, even when the world around us is chaotic, unpredictable, or disappointing? Let's break it down. Defining inner conditions. Inner conditions are the invisible forces inside you that shape how you interpret life. They are not the things happening to you, but the lenses through which you see what's happening. Some of the most powerful inner conditions include mindset, how you choose to view yourself and your circumstances. Are you stuck in a negative loop, or do you believe in your ability to grow and adapt? Gratitude, the ability to notice and appreciate what you do have instead of obsessing over what you lack. Purpose, a sense of meaning, direction, and contribution, knowing that what you do matters, even in small ways. Peace, a calm and centered state that isn't shaken by every obstacle. Peace comes from acceptance, not control. These are the true foundations of emotional well-being. And here's what makes them so powerful. You can build them intentionally. Unlike outward conditions, which are often outside your control, these inner qualities are yours to develop, nurture, and return to. They're like muscles. The more you use them, the stronger they become. How your beliefs shape your emotional reality. Let's pause on this idea for a moment. Your beliefs shape your emotions more than your circumstances. Imagine two people stuck in traffic. One is furious, slamming the steering wheel, yelling, stressed. The other is calm, maybe listening to music, using the time to breathe or reflect. Same traffic, different emotional reality. Why? Because of what they believe. One believes, this is ruining my day. The other believes, this is out of my control. Might as well make the most of it. Now think about your life. Are there situations where the way you think about them is causing more suffering than the situation itself? This is where inner conditions come into play. Because if you change the way you see the world itself changes, not literally, but emotionally, spiritually, even physically. What the research says, perception over circumstance. Science backs this up. Psychological research has consistently shown that happiness is far more influenced by how you perceive your life than by the actual details of it. Let's look at a few key findings. The Harvard study of adult development, one of the longest-running studies on human happiness, found that meaningful relationships and emotional resilience, not money or fame, are the strongest predictors of long-term happiness. Dr. Martin Seligman, founder of positive psychology, argues that happiness is made up of three things: pleasure, short-term joy, engagement, being absorbed in what you're doing, and meaning, a sense of purpose. Guess what? Only one of these has anything to do with outward conditions, and it's the least important. A study in the journal Science showed that people who won the lottery were not significantly happier a year later than those who didn't, and in some cases, they were less happy due to anxiety and isolation. Why? Because external gains don't override internal patterns. If you were anxious, ungrateful, or negative before, you will carry those same inner habits into your better circumstances. So this means something powerful. Happiness isn't something you find, it's something you build. And the tools aren't out there, they're already within you. The mindset to reframe failure as feedback, the gratitude to recognize the small things, the purpose to turn routine into meaning, the peace to sit with uncertainty and not be consumed by it. These are your inner conditions. They are your emotional foundation, your operating system. And when you strengthen them, life feels different, even when it looks the same. So the next time you feel like happiness is out of reach, ask yourself, what's going on inside me right now? Not, what do I need to fix out there, but what do I need to nurture in here? Coming up next, we'll explore how you can begin cultivating these inner conditions, starting today, with practical tools that reshape your habits, your perspective, and ultimately, your happiness. The power of perspective. By now, you're starting to see the theme. Happiness isn't so much about what happens to you, but how you see what's happening. And that brings us to one of the most powerful tools for emotional well-being, one that sits at the very heart of Carnegie's teachings: perspective. In simple terms, change how you see a problem, and you change how you feel about it. Sounds simple, but it's not always easy. Why? Because most of us don't question our perspective. We assume what we see is the whole story. But what if it's not? A tale of two employees. Same job, different lives. Let's bring this to life with a story. Imagine two people. We'll call them Alex and Jordan. They work the same job at the same company. They sit two desks apart. They earn the exact same salary. They work the same hours. From the outside, their lives look identical. But inside, they're living two completely different emotional realities. Alex wakes up dreading work. He focuses on everything wrong: the tedious tasks, the annoying boss, the broken coffee machine. He feels stuck, underappreciated, and constantly compares himself to people with better jobs. To him, this job is a prison. Jordan, on the other hand, sees the same job as a stepping stone. She's using the role to build skills, gain experience, and connect with mentors. She's grateful for the steady income, the flexible hours, and the opportunity to grow. To her, this job is a platform. Same job, same salary, same environment, but a completely different story. So which one is right? Both, technically, but more importantly, one is empowered while the other is resentful. And that difference comes down to perspective. Reframing, the secret skill to happier thinking. This is where the concept of reframing comes in, one of the most important mindset tools you can learn. Reframing means taking the same situation and choosing to interpret it in a more constructive, empowering way. It doesn't mean denying reality. It means expanding it. Think of it like changing the frame on a photo. The picture doesn't change, but the way you present it, the way you see it, does. Example 1. Failure. Old frame: I failed, I'm not good enough. New frame: I learned something I didn't know. I'm growing. Example 2. Rejection. Old frame: they didn't want me, I must not be valuable. New frame: that wasn't the right fit. My people and my path are still ahead. Example 3. Struggle. Old frame: this is unfair. Why me? New frame: this challenge is building something in me. Strength, patience, depth. Reframing doesn't erase pain. It doesn't ignore difficulty. It simply refuses to give pain the final word. How perspective physically changes your brain. And here's the incredible part. Neuroscience supports this. Your thoughts actually shape your brain. This is known as neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on what you focus on consistently. So when you repeatedly choose to reframe, to see challenges as growth, to focus on what you can control, to practice gratitude, you're not just thinking positively, you're building neural pathways that support long-term emotional strength. Over time, your default perspective becomes more balanced, more grounded, and more optimistic, not because your life got easier, but because you got wiser in how you interpret it. A quick thought experiment. Pause for a moment and think about this. Is there something in your life right now that's bothering you? Something you've labeled as bad, annoying, or unfair? Now, ask yourself, what else could this mean? How might this situation be preparing me for something better? If I were telling a success story about this 5 years from now, how would it sound? That's reframing in action. That's the power of perspective. From reaction to reflection. Most people go through life reacting to everything. Someone offends them, they're angry. Something breaks, they're frustrated. A plan fails, they spiral. But leaders, creators, peaceful people, they respond. They pause. They ask better questions. They reflect. And most importantly, they choose their perspective on purpose. That's emotional maturity. That's the heart of Carnegie's message. You can't always control your circumstances, but you can absolutely control how you see them. And once you learn that skill, really learn it, you take back your power. In the next section, we'll go even deeper into that power and explore the practical habits that train your mind to see the world in more resilient and joyful ways. Because happiness isn't just a decision, it's a daily practice, and it starts with the way you think. The role of mindset and gratitude. At this point in our journey, we've seen that happiness is not about perfect conditions, but about how we choose to see and respond to life. This brings us to two of the most powerful drivers of inner happiness: mindset and gratitude. These are more than just buzzwords. They are practical, foundational habits of thought, and they're available to every person, regardless of status, background, or circumstance. Let's break each of them down. Mindset. Not just positive thinking, it's choosing your lens. When most people hear the word mindset, they think of cliché motivational posters. Think happy thoughts. Just stay positive. Good vibes only. But real mindset work goes far deeper. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing the lens through which you interpret reality. As psychologist Carol Dweck famously explains, in a fixed mindset, people believe their abilities and qualities are set in stone. In a growth mindset, they believe they can develop and adapt. This difference in belief shapes everything. How you handle failure, how you view effort, how you respond to change, how you see yourself. Let's take an example. Two people get rejected from a job. One says, "I must not be good enough. I'll never make it." The other says, "Okay, not this time. What can I learn from this? What's the next step?" The rejection didn't change. The mindset did. And here's the magic. The second person isn't just thinking positively. They're taking back control. They're choosing a perspective that fuels growth, not defeat. That's what mindset really is. It's a decision, over and over again, to see yourself not as a finished product, but as a work in progress with potential and purpose. Speed, gratitude is the foundation of sustainable joy. Let's now talk about a practice that may be simple, but is one of the most life-changing inner tools ever studied: gratitude. At first glance, gratitude might sound soft, nice, but not essential. But research and lived experience tells a different story. Gratitude isn't about ignoring what's hard in your life. It's about refusing to let what's missing blind you to what's already there. Gratitude says, yes, life isn't perfect, but it's also not empty. Yes, there are challenges, but there's also breath in my lungs, people I love, moments of peace. In fact, gratitude rewires your brain. According to neuroscientific studies, regularly practicing gratitude activates areas in the brain associated with dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good chemicals. It reduces levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. It enhances sleep, empathy, and even physical health. One study from the University of California asked participants to write down 5 things they were grateful for each day for just 10 weeks. The result? They reported feeling 25% happier, exercised more, had fewer health complaints, and were more optimistic about their futures. All from just a few minutes of reflection a day. Reverse gratitude builds resilience and long-term optimism. You know what's truly amazing? Gratitude doesn't just make you feel better, it makes you stronger. Here's why. Grateful people are more likely to bounce back from adversity. They're less likely to dwell on negative thoughts. They tend to seek solutions, not spiral in problems. They find meaning in difficulty instead of being crushed by it. When you live in gratitude, challenges don't shrink, you grow. You begin to trust that even in pain, there's purpose. Even in waiting, there's worth. Even in loss, there can be learning. That kind of mindset doesn't come from denial. It comes from depth, from building a relationship with life that isn't conditional on everything going your way. Daily gratitude in practice. Simple, but profound. So how do you build a habit of gratitude? It starts small, but it grows fast. Try this. Every morning, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be big. A quiet moment, a good cup of coffee, someone's smile, your favorite song. Reflect for just 2 to 3 minutes. That's it. Over time, your brain begins scanning for more things to be grateful for throughout the day. You literally start training your mind to look for the good. Some people even practice gratitude during difficulty. That means when something hard happens, you still ask, is there something here I can be thankful for? That's advanced gratitude. That's emotional resilience. Number 5. Mindset and gratitude equal emotional freedom. When you put mindset and gratitude together, you create something powerful. The ability to respond to life, not react to it. The ability to anchor yourself in something stable, even when life feels unstable. The ability to feel joy, not as a reward for what happens to you, but as a reflection of who you're choosing to become. So ask yourself, what lens have I been using lately? How often do I acknowledge the good? What would happen if I made gratitude a daily habit, starting now? Coming up next, we'll explore how to build a culture of happiness, not just in yourself, but in your home, your team, and your community. Because joy is contagious, and when you live from inner conditions, you light the way for others to do the same. How to build inner happiness. By now, we've explored the inner landscape of happiness, mindset, gratitude, perspective. And we've begun to understand that happiness is something we cultivate, not something we wait for. But the next question is crucial. How do we actually build lasting inner happiness, day by day, in the real world? Not in theory, not in fantasy, but in the middle of our messy, beautiful, demanding lives. In this section, we'll walk through 4 essential practices, not just to feel better in moments, but to create a sustainable foundation of well-being that supports you through both joy and hardship. Let's begin with one of the most toxic happiness blockers of all. 1. Letting go of comparison. If happiness is an inside job, then comparison is the burglar that sneaks in and steals it. We live in an age of hypervisibility, where everyone's life is on display 24/7. Scrolling through social media, it's easy to believe that everyone else is happier, wealthier, more attractive, more successful, more loved. But what we forget is this: we're comparing our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. We don't see the fights before the smiling couple's selfie. We don't see the stress behind the luxury vacation. We don't see the doubts hiding behind the confident caption. Comparison always leads to one of two places: envy, why don't I have that? Or ego, at least I'm doing better than them. And neither leads to joy. Both take you away from your own path. As Theodore Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. So what's the alternative? Focus on alignment, not comparison. Ask, am I living in a way that reflects who I truly am? Am I honoring my values, my growth, my peace? Am I getting better at being me? When you trade comparison for alignment, you stop trying to win life and start trying to live it fully. 2. Practicing self-compassion. Let's move to something that might feel unfamiliar for many people, especially high achievers: self-compassion. We're often taught to be hard on ourselves, to criticize our mistakes, to push ourselves harder. But self-criticism doesn't lead to growth. It leads to shame, burnout, and paralysis. Self-compassion, on the other hand, is the radical act of treating yourself with the same kindness, patience, and understanding that you would offer a close friend. It means saying, it's okay to struggle. I'm not broken, I'm human. Mistakes are part of learning, not signs of failure. According to researcher Dr. Kristen Neff, self-compassion has been linked to greater emotional resilience, reduced anxiety and depression, higher motivation and accountability, a more stable, peaceful sense of self-worth. It's not about letting yourself off the hook. It's about building the emotional safety to keep going, especially when things go wrong. So the next time you mess up, fall behind, or feel like you're not enough, pause and ask, what would I say to someone I love in this same situation? Now say it to yourself. That's self-compassion. That's emotional strength. 3. Building routines that support emotional well-being. Inner happiness doesn't happen in random moments. It's reinforced by rhythm. If your daily routine is full of stress, noise, digital overload, and disconnection, how can you expect peace? Happiness isn't just about how you think, it's about how you live. Start building routines that support your emotional well-being, such as morning quiet time. Start your day grounded, meditation, journaling, prayer, or simply breathing. Daily movement. Exercise is not just for your body. It boosts serotonin and clears mental fog. Digital boundaries. Set limits on social media, email, and screens. Your brain needs stillness. Meaningful conversations. Talk with people who nourish your soul, not just your timeline. Reflection time. End the day by asking, what went well today? What can I release? You don't need a perfect schedule. Just one or two intentional habits can shift your emotional baseline from reactive to reflective, from scattered to centered. Think of it this way. Every routine is either feeding your peace or draining it. Choose rhythms that align with your joy. 4. Connecting with values over distractions. Finally, the deepest happiness comes from living in alignment with your values, not being pulled in every direction by distractions. Our modern world constantly tempts us to focus on consumption, comparison, escapism, and instant gratification. And while those things may give us a quick dopamine hit, they don't satisfy our soul. Ask yourself, What actually matters to me? What kind of person do I want to be? What legacy do I want to leave in my relationships? These are your values. When you align your life with them, you feel meaningful happiness, not just emotional spikes, but deep, quiet fulfillment. For example, if you value connection, prioritize quality time with others over doom scrolling. If you value growth, set learning goals and celebrate progress. If you value service, find small ways to help someone each week, even with a kind word. Living your values brings coherence to your life. It makes the inside match the outside. And when your values lead, distractions lose their grip. You stop chasing shallow highs and start building real peace. Final thought for this section. Let's take a breath. Inner happiness isn't a mystery. It's not magic. It's not reserved for a lucky few. It's built by letting go of comparison, practicing self-compassion, creating nurturing routines, and living in alignment with your deepest values. These are not easy things, but they are simple and they are powerful. Coming up next, we'll explore the emotional environment you create for others and how building psychological safety can amplify happiness not just in your life, but in the lives of those around you. Because true happiness grows when it's shared. How to build inner happiness. By now, we've explored the inner landscape of happiness: mindset, gratitude, perspective. And we've begun to understand that happiness is something we cultivate, not something we wait for. But the next question is crucial. How do we actually build lasting inner happiness, day by day, in the real world? Not in theory, not in fantasy, but in the middle of our messy, beautiful, demanding lives. In this section, we'll walk through 4 essential practices, not just to feel better in moments, but to create a sustainable foundation of well-being that supports you through both joy and hardship. Let's begin with one of the most toxic happiness blockers of all. 1. Letting go of comparison. If happiness is an inside job, then comparison is the burglar that sneaks in and steals it. We live in an age of hypervisibility, where everyone's life is on display 24/7. Scrolling through social media, it's easy to believe that everyone else is happier, wealthier, more attractive, more successful, more loved. But what we forget is this: we're comparing our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. We don't see the fights before the smiling couple's selfie. We don't see the stress behind the luxury vacation. We don't see the doubts hiding behind the confident caption. Comparison always leads to one of 2 places: envy, why don't I have that? Or ego, at least I'm doing better than them. And neither leads to joy. Both take you away from your own path. As Theodore Roosevelt said, comparison is the thief of joy. So what's the alternative? Focus on alignment, not comparison. Ask, am I living in a way that reflects who I truly am? Am I honoring my values, my growth, my peace? Am I getting better at being me? When you trade comparison for alignment, you stop trying to win life and start trying to live it fully. 2. Practicing self-compassion. Let's move to something that might feel unfamiliar for many people, especially high achievers: self-compassion. We're often taught to be hard on ourselves, to criticize our mistakes, to push ourselves harder. But self-criticism doesn't lead to growth. It leads to shame, burnout, and paralysis. Self-compassion, on the other hand, is the radical act of treating yourself with the same kindness, patience, and understanding that you would offer a close friend. It means saying, it's okay to struggle. I'm not broken, I'm human. Mistakes are part of learning, not signs of failure. According to researcher Dr. Kristen Neff, self-compassion has been linked to greater emotional resilience, reduced anxiety and depression, higher motivation and accountability, a more stable, peaceful sense of self-worth. It's not about letting yourself off the hook. It's about building the emotional safety to keep going, especially when things go wrong. So the next time you mess up, fall behind, or feel like you're not enough, pause and ask, what would I say to someone I love in this same situation? Now say it to yourself. That's self-compassion. That's emotional strength. 3. Building routines that support emotional well-being. Inner happiness doesn't happen in random moments. It's reinforced by rhythm. If your daily routine is full of stress, noise, digital overload, and disconnection, how can you expect peace? Happiness isn't just about how you think, it's about how you live. Start building routines that support your emotional well-being, such as morning quiet time. Start your day grounded, meditation, journaling, prayer, or simply breathing. Daily movement. Exercise is not just for your body. It boosts serotonin and clears mental fog. Digital boundaries. Set limits on social media, email, and screens. Your brain needs stillness. Meaningful conversations. Talk with people who nourish your soul, not just your timeline. Reflection time. End the day by asking, what went well today? What can I release? You don't need a perfect schedule. Just 1 or 2 intentional habits can shift your emotional baseline from reactive to reflective, from scattered to centered. Think of it this way. Every routine is either feeding your peace or draining it. Choose rhythms that align with your joy. 4. Connecting with values over distractions. Finally, the deepest happiness comes from living in alignment with your values, not being pulled in every direction by distractions. Our modern world constantly tempts us to focus on consumption, comparison, escapism, and instant gratification. And while those things may give us a quick dopamine hit, they don't satisfy our soul. Ask yourself, what actually matters to me? What kind of person do I want to be? What legacy do I want to leave in my relationships? These are your values. When you align your life with them, you feel meaningful happiness, not just emotional spikes, but deep, quiet fulfillment. For example, if you value connection, prioritize quality time with others over doom scrolling. If you value growth, set learning goals and celebrate progress. If you value service, find small ways to help someone each week, even with a kind word. Living your values brings coherence to your life. It makes the inside match the outside. And when your values lead, distractions lose their grip. You stop chasing shallow highs and start building real peace. Final thought for this section. Let's take a breath. Inner happiness isn't a mystery. It's not magic. It's not reserved for a lucky few. It's built by letting go of comparison, practicing self-compassion, creating nurturing routines, and living in alignment with your deepest values. These are not easy things, but they are simple and they are powerful. Coming up next, we'll explore the emotional environment you create for others and how building psychological safety can amplify happiness not just in your life, but in the lives of those around you. Because true happiness grows when it's shared. Common traps that steal inner joy. 45 minutes to 52 minutes. As we continue our journey inward, it's important to address not just what builds happiness, but also what steals it. Because sometimes we're doing everything right. We meditate, we journal, we read the books, and yet we feel stuck, frustrated, or emotionally exhausted. Why? Because we've unknowingly fallen into what I call joy traps, hidden patterns, beliefs, and habits that quietly drain our inner peace. In this section, we'll explore some of the most common traps that rob us of lasting happiness and how to break free. Perfectionism and approval seeking. Let's begin with two closely related traps: perfectionism and approval seeking. Perfectionism says, I'll only be happy when I get it exactly right, when I'm flawless, admired, and never make mistakes. Approval seeking says, I'll only be okay when other people say I'm enough, when I'm validated, praised, or accepted. At first glance, these might seem like motivators, but in truth, they are prisons. Perfectionism creates chronic stress because no matter how much you do, it never feels like enough. Approval seeking creates emotional dependency because your sense of worth is tied to someone else's opinion. You live on edge, terrified of slipping up, desperate to be liked, and always falling short of some idealized version of yourself. Here's the truth. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You don't need applause to be valuable. When you release the need to prove yourself, you begin to discover a quieter, deeper kind of happiness, one rooted not in performance, but in presence. The myth of "I'll be happy when." This trap is sneaky and it's everywhere. I'll be happy when I get the job. I'll be happy when I lose 20 pounds. I'll be happy when I find the right partner. I'll be happy when I have more followers. It's a form of emotional procrastination. You keep postponing joy for a future that never quite arrives because the goalpost keeps moving. And here's what happens. Even when you reach the milestone, you're already chasing the next one. That's the happiness trap, mistaking achievement for fulfillment. But true happiness doesn't live in the when. It lives in the now, in presence, in alignment, in appreciation of the journey, not just the destination. If you're not happy on the way to the dream, you won't be happy when you get there. That's not just philosophy. That's experience. The antidote? Celebrate progress now. Find peace in the process. Don't make happiness a condition. Make it a companion. real-world examples and stories. We've explored the inner mechanics of happiness, mindset, gratitude, values, emotional habits. But sometimes the most powerful truths don't come from theory or science. They come from stories, real people, real choices, real transformation. In this segment, let's look at 3 powerful real-world examples. These aren't celebrities, they aren't gurus. They are everyday humans who discovered something extraordinary. That happiness is possible, even in pain. That joy can rise even from ashes. And that inner peace isn't a product of perfection, but of perspective. Story 1. A refugee who found peace in chaos. Her name is Luma. She fled Syria with her 2 children in 2016. Her city had been bombed to ruins. Her husband missing. Her home gone overnight. They walked for miles, slept in refugee camps, crossed borders not knowing where they'd land. Eventually, they were granted asylum in Canada. When asked by a journalist how she remained so composed, she simply said, "I lost everything I had, but not who I am." She kept a small journal with her, scribbling every day 3 things she was grateful for. Her son's laughter, the warmth of tea, a stranger's kindness. She didn't deny the pain, but she refused to let the pain become her whole story. Luma now works as a trauma support counselor for other refugees. She teaches them not just how to survive, but how to heal. And what she tells every new arrival is this: you cannot always choose what the world gives you, but you can choose what you give back to the world. That is inner happiness. Not ease, not comfort, but courage, meaning, and perspective in the middle of suffering. Story 2. The CEO who burned out chasing success. Michael was the textbook definition of successful. Harvard grad, CEO of a rising tech startup, multi-millionaire by 35, recognized on Forbes lists, a calendar filled with meetings, dinners, product launches. But behind the scenes, his marriage was crumbling. He hadn't seen his parents in months. He suffered insomnia, panic attacks, and chronic fatigue. He kept telling himself, just get through this quarter, just hit the next target. Until one day, after collapsing on an airport floor from exhaustion, he realized he had built a thriving company, but a hollow life. He stepped down, took 6 months off. During that time, he did something he hadn't done in years. He sat in silence. He read. He reflected. He began therapy. He hiked. He learned to meditate. And slowly, he began building a new life, one with space, presence, purpose. He now speaks to young entrepreneurs not about how to scale fast, but how to live slow, how to stay well on the climb. And he ends every talk with this: if success costs you your health, your relationships, your peace, it's not success. It's a very expensive mistake. Michael found what Dale Carnegie taught decades ago. Happiness is not found in external wins. It's found in an internal shift. Apple story: a teacher who taught joy beyond circumstances. Ms. Ramirez taught 5th grade in a low-income school district. Many of her students came from homes filled with instability, violence, hunger, neglect. Some walked to school in worn-out shoes. Others hid their tears behind laughter. She couldn't control what happened in their homes, but she knew what she could control: the emotional atmosphere of her classroom. Every morning, her students began with one question: what's something good that happened yesterday, even if it was small? Some days the answers were simple. I saw my brother smile. We had cereal for dinner. I finished my book. Ms. Ramirez didn't teach happiness through lectures, she taught it through ritual. A gratitude wall on the back of the classroom, breathing breaks between subjects, a kindness shout-out before dismissal each Friday. And slowly the room changed. Test scores rose, behavioral issues dropped. But more than that, her students began to believe that joy was still available to them, no matter what waited at home. She often said, "You cannot always choose what's outside your door, but you can choose what you carry inside your heart." Years later, one of her students, now a teacher himself, shared in an interview, "Ms. Ramirez didn't just teach us math, she taught us that we mattered. That happiness didn't belong to rich people or lucky people, it belonged to anyone who chose it." What these stories remind us: 3 lives, 3 very different circumstances, but one common thread. Happiness came from within, not from the absence of pain, but from the presence of meaning. Luma chose gratitude in a refugee camp. Michael chose peace over prestige. Ms. Ramirez chose joy in soil others overlooked. And so can we. In the final segment, we'll bring it all together and reflect on what this journey means for you. Because ultimately, this isn't just about theory or inspiration. It's about a decision to stop chasing happiness and start building it from the inside out. As we close out this hour together, let's return to where we began, to one of Dale Carnegie's most profound truths. Happiness doesn't depend on outward conditions. It depends on inner conditions. This isn't just a quote. It's a radical redefinition of what it means to live well. We've been taught, conditioned even, to believe that happiness lives out there, in the job, in the relationship, in the bank account, in the applause. But real happiness doesn't come from what you own. It starts with how you think, how you interpret, how you respond, how you choose to see yourself and your life. That's what Dale Carnegie understood so deeply, and what so many of us have forgotten. No amount of outer success can replace inner calm. Not more money, not more status, not more validation. Because if your mind is filled with fear, your heart with resentment, your thoughts with comparison, then no achievement will ever feel like enough. Compass, final takeaway. Peace, purpose, and perspective are choices. Over the last hour, we've unpacked the tools that matter most. Not tools for performing, competing, or chasing, but tools for grounding, growing, and living with intention. The power of mindset, not fake positivity, but intentional perspective. The practice of gratitude, not denial, but daily recognition of what's real and good. The importance of self-compassion, giving yourself permission to be human. The gift of routines that protect your peace and train your joy. And most of all, the strength to live in alignment with your values, even when the world tries to pull you away from them. These aren't personality traits. They are choices. They are practices. They are muscles, and every day you use them, they grow stronger. You don't have to wait for the world to change for you to be at peace. You don't have to arrive to start enjoying the journey. You don't have to have more to feel like you are already enough. You can choose joy now. You can choose presence now. You can choose peace, even if everything around you is noisy. Because happiness starts on the inside. Ecological compass, call to action. Let's keep this conversation going. Before you go, here's your invitation. Splinter phone symbol. Reflect in the comments. What inner condition are you working on right now? Is it letting go of perfectionism, building gratitude, reframing a situation in your life? Your words might just inspire someone else, and your honesty could remind someone they're not alone. Red Heart, if this video spoke to you, please hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and consider sharing it with someone who's stuck in that "I'll be happy when" loop. You never know what one conversation can spark. Because happiness doesn't belong to the lucky few. It belongs to the ones who are willing to stop chasing and start choosing. Thank you for spending this hour with us. Now go out there not to seek happiness, but to create it from the inside out. Until next time, stay grounded, stay grateful, and most of all, stay human.